Rotten fruit splattered against the rough wooden planks behind her, the juice and pulp a stinging insult against Alara's cheek. The jeers of the onlookers were worse, each word a sharpened stone aimed at her heart. "Traitor's daughter!" they screamed, their faces contorted with hatred. "Curse upon her line!" Alara flinched, but she refused to break. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Alara was an outcast. In the kingdom of Silverpeak, where the strength and unity of the werewolf pack were paramount, she was a pariah, forever marked by her father's alleged treachery. Once a respected member of the Alpha Council, he now languished in the dungeons, accused of conspiring against Alpha King Kalen and threatening the stability of the entire pack. Whether the accusations were true, Alara couldn't be sure. She was stuck in a limbo of conflicting emotions, loyalty to her father and love for the pack. For years, Alara had lived in isolation, banished to a small, dilapidated cottage on the fringes of the kingdom. The once vibrant young woman was now a shadow of her former self, her spirit worn down by the constant scorn and suspicion. The werewolf kingdom thrived on tradition and the wisdom of the Alpha Council. This council, composed of the most powerful and influential wolves in the land, advised the Alpha King and ensured the smooth running of the pack. Her father had been a pillar of this council, his voice respected, his counsel valued. His sudden fall from grace had sent shockwaves through the kingdom, leaving Alara to bear the brunt of the fallout. One bleak afternoon, as storm clouds gathered on the horizon, an unexpected visitor shattered the monotony of Alara's solitary existence. The ground trembled beneath the weight of his presence. The Alpha King himself, Kalen, stood before her humble cottage. His arrival was as unwelcome as it was unexpected. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced her heart. What could he possibly want from her? Alara's appearance mirrored her ostracized existence. Her clothes were simple and worn. Her once bright eyes now held a guarded, haunted look. Her hair, the color of raven's wings, was often unkempt, and her skin, though still bearing traces of youthful beauty, was marked by the hardship she had endured. Scorn had carved lines of premature age into her face. Kalen, in contrast, exuded an aura of regal authority. His broad shoulders, his piercing blue eyes, and the way he held himself spoke of power and command. But beneath the surface, Alara detected a weariness, a hint of sadness that seemed to mirror her own. His face was set in a grim line, but his eyes held a flicker of something unreadable, something that made her uneasy. A fleeting image flashed through Alara's mind, a memory of her father, laughing with a young Kalen, their bond seemingly unbreakable. Before the shadow of treason, they had been the best of friends. Would you like to know what happens next? What the Alpha King wants from the traitor's daughter? Then be sure to subscribe to our channel for more exciting episodes. Alara. Kalen's voice resonated with an authority that brooked no argument. You will attend the upcoming Alpha Council meeting. The word struck Alara like a physical blow. The council meeting? For her, the daughter of a traitor? It was unthinkable, a death sentence disguised as an invitation. Her eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed with defiance. I refuse, she spat, the word laced with venom. I have no place there. Kalen's expression remained impassive, unreadable. You have an obligation, he stated simply. An obligation you cannot ignore. His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Obligation? Alara scoffed, her voice rising in anger. My only obligation is to survive, to endure the hatred you and your council have so generously bestowed upon me. She took a step back, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. Kalen advanced, closing the distance between them. His eyes, piercing and intense, held her captive. Your family's loyalty has been questioned, Alara. This is your chance to prove it or face the consequences. Whispers like insidious tendrils began to slither through the pack. Kalen's unusual interest in Alara did not go unnoticed. Speculation ran rampant, fueled by suspicion and prejudice. Some whispered that he was using her, manipulating her to expose any remaining conspirators loyal to her father. Others, more daring, suggested a different motive, a spark of something unexpected in the Alpha King's eyes. Alara found herself caught in a web of rumors and innuendo, her every move scrutinized, every word dissected. The pressure was suffocating, the weight of expectation crushing her spirit. Flight, The thought took root in her mind, a desperate seed of hope. Flee, escape the kingdom, disappear into the wilderness. It was a dangerous proposition, fraught with peril, but it was better than facing the wolves at the council. Better than being judged and condemned based on the sins of her father. Yet she could not simply leave. There was something holding her back from just leaving. Perhaps her father still being alive. Or the small sliver of hope that his name could be cleared. As Alara grappled with her inner turmoil, a small act of kindness offered a flicker of light in the encroaching darkness. A low-ranking pack member, a young woman named Lyra, approached her with hesitant steps. "Alara," she whispered, her eyes filled with a mixture of sympathy and fear. "Be careful. Councilman Theron, he hates your father. He will do anything to see you suffer." Lyra's words confirmed Alara's deepest fears. Councilman Theron was a powerful and influential figure, known for his ruthlessness and his unwavering loyalty to the Alpha King. He had been one of her father's fiercest rivals, and his hatred for the traitor extended to his daughter. Theron will stop at nothing to see her punished for her father's actions. Lyra said he's been poisoning people's minds against you even more, stirring up the old resentments. She looked at Alara with genuine concern. "You have to watch your back." Alara understood the gravity of Lyra's warning. The council meeting was not simply an inquiry. It was a trap carefully laid by Councilman Theron, and she was walking straight into it. With a heavy heart, Alara made her decision. She would attend the Alpha Council meeting. Not out of duty, not out of loyalty, but out of a desperate hope to clear her father's name and reclaim her own life. If she ran, they would always assume guilt. She drew a shaky breath, steeling her resolve. "I will go," she told Kaelin, her voice barely a whisper. The journey to the Alpha Council had begun, and with it, the first step into the unknown. The journey to the capital was arduous, a grueling trek through dense forests and across windswept plains. Every step felt like a lead weight dragging Alara down, each mile a testament to her dwindling hope. Kaelin rode ahead, his broad back a constant, unwavering presence. Though he rarely spoke, his watchful gaze was ever upon her, a silent promise of protection that simultaneously comforted and unnerved her. They were constantly watched by others. Pack members, their faces etched with curiosity and suspicion, lined the roads, their eyes following Alara's every move. She felt like a caged animal, paraded for the amusement of the masses. The tension between Alara and Kaelin was a palpable thing, a thick, suffocating blanket that stifled every breath. They were bound together by circumstance, their shared history a tangled web of loyalty, betrayal, and unspoken desires. There were moments, fleeting and almost accidental, when their eyes would meet, and a spark of something inexplicable would ignite between them. A shared glance across a campfire, a brush of hands as they navigated a treacherous path. Small moments that hinted at a connection buried beneath layers of distrust and resentment. However, those moments were often followed by an awkward silence. One night, huddled beneath a makeshift shelter, Alara succumbed to exhaustion and fell into a fitful sleep. Her dreams were a kaleidoscope of fragmented memories and haunting visions. She saw her father, his face etched with pain and despair, pleading with her to believe in his innocence. Then the scene shifted, dissolving into a chaotic blur of shadowy figures and whispered accusations. The betrayal or the alleged betrayal played out in her mind again and again. The dream ended with her father being taken away by the Alpha Guard. It was not clear if he was guilty. The whispers followed her even in her waking hours. The attention Kaelin paid to Alara, however subtle, did not go unnoticed. Jealousy festered among the she-wolves of the pack, their eyes burning with resentment. They saw her as an interloper, a threat to their position, a stain on the purity of their lineage. Some saw her as a challenge. Kaelin, seemingly oblivious to the brewing storm, continued to demonstrate subtle acts of protection towards Alara. He ensured she had the best provisions, shielded her from the harsh elements, and intervened when other pack members dared to voice their disdain too openly. These actions only fueled the rumors and intensified the suspicion surrounding their relationship. Unbeknownst to Alara, Councilman Theron was weaving his own web of deceit, plotting against her and Kaelin. In the shadows, Theron was carefully manipulating the opinions of other council members, whispering lies and planting seeds of doubt about Alara's true intentions. He was determined to ensure her condemnation, regardless of her innocence or guilt. He also had people watching Kaelin as well to see if he could dig up dirt on him. As they drew closer to the capital, the grandeur and imposing nature of the city became increasingly apparent. Massive stone walls, towering gates, and bustling marketplaces greeted them. Alara felt a growing sense of unease, a feeling of being watched that intensified with every step. She knew that she was walking into a lion's den, surrounded by enemies who would stop at nothing to see her destroyed. The capital city was a stark contrast to the isolated existence she had known for so long. It was a place of power, of intrigue, of secrets, a place where the fate of the kingdom was decided, and where Alara's own destiny hung precariously in the balance. It was a land of the rich and powerful, and Alara was just a peasant. This reality made her feel even more alone. The capital city buzzed with a frenetic energy, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude Alara had grown accustomed to. The cobblestone streets teemed with merchants hawking their wares, nobles parading in elaborate attire, and commoners scrambling for scraps. The wealth of the Alpha elite was on full display, evident in the opulent architecture and the extravagant lifestyles of its inhabitants. Yet, beneath the veneer of prosperity, Alara sensed a simmering discontent, a palpable tension between the privileged few and the struggling masses. The air was thick with both excitement and animosity. Alara felt acutely out of place amidst the Alpha elite. She was treated with a mixture of scorn and morbid curiosity. Noble women draped in silks and jewels cast disdainful glances her way, their whispers like venomous darts. Alpha males, their eyes glinting with a predatory interest, sized her up with unsettling gazes. She was an anomaly, a reminder of the kingdom's dark underbelly, a symbol of the treachery that had threatened to tear them apart. Her very presence seemed to offend their sensibilities, a disruption of their carefully curated world. They saw her as the problem that needed to be extinguished. As they approached the heart of the capital, Alara caught a glimpse of the council chamber. The structure loomed over the city, a colossal edifice of stone and steel, its towering spires piercing the sky. The building was a symbol of power and authority. The very sight of it sent a shiver down her spine. Within those walls her fate would be decided, her life hanging in the balance. She knew the power in the council chamber was immense, but she was running out of time. Upon arriving at their designated quarters, Alara was ushered into a lavish room, far grander than anything she had ever seen. Servants bustled around her, their movements efficient and impersonal. She was given new clothes, exquisitely crafted gowns of silk and velvet, adorned with intricate embroidery. Felt like a trap. She was being dressed up, groomed for a performance, but what was the role she was meant to play? Was she to be a scapegoat, a sacrificial lamb offered to appease the bloodlust of the council? Among the servants, one stood out, a woman named Mara. Her eyes filled with a quiet empathy that set her apart from the others. Mara seemed genuinely concerned for Alara's well-being, her touch gentle and reassuring. As she helped Alara dress, Mara whispered cryptic advice. Trust no one, child. Everyone here has their own agenda. Watch for the shadows and listen to your heart. Mara's words were a lifeline, a warning to navigate the treacherous currents that swirled around her. She was a friend in the darkness. Meanwhile, Councilman Theron was hard at work, subtly influencing the opinions of other council members against Alara. He spread rumors, fabricated evidence, and played on their existing prejudices, painting her as a dangerous conspirator, a threat to the stability of the kingdom. He was a master manipulator, skilled at exploiting weaknesses and twisting truths to suit his own agenda. His words were poison, slowly but surely infecting the minds of the council members. As the day of the council meeting drew closer, Alara's paranoia intensified. She felt like she was walking into a nightmare. Every glance, every whisper, every shadow seemed to hold a hidden threat. She knew that she was surrounded by enemies, wolves eager to tear her apart. She was alone, vulnerable, and desperately afraid. The danger was all around her, and she didn't know who to trust. Her fear was at an all-time high, but she knew that she must continue. She could not give up now. The council chamber was a spectacle of intimidating grandeur. Towering columns of polished obsidian supported a vaulted ceiling adorned with intricate carvings depicting scenes of werewolf history. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the marble floor. A massive circular table dominated the center of the room, surrounded by plush chairs upholstered in deep crimson velvet. The air crackled with anticipation, the weight of power and tradition pressing down on Alara like a physical burden. The atmosphere was heavy with expectation, each member aware of the gravity of the proceedings about to unfold. The Alpha Council members were a diverse group, each possessing a distinct personality and a clear bias. Councilman Gregor, a seasoned warrior with a grizzled beard and a stern demeanor, was known for his unwavering loyalty to the Alpha King. Councillor Lyra, a shrewd strategist with a sharp mind and a silver tongue, wielded considerable influence within the council. Councilman Marius, an elder statesman with a calm demeanor and a measured tone, was respected for his wisdom and impartiality. Councilman Theron stood out with his piercing gaze and calculating smile. Each radiated authority and confidence. Alara knew they were all influential, and she needed to make sure to have them on her side. Councilman Theron rose from his seat, his voice ringing through the chamber. "Alara," he began, his tone dripping with contempt, "you stand accused of conspiring with your traitorous father, plotting against the Alpha King, and threatening the very stability of our pack." His words were like a slap in the face, each syllable laced with venom. The accusations were bold, delivered with conviction, and designed to sway the opinions of the other council members. He was clearly there to intimidate her. Alara stood tall, despite the tremor in her voice. "I am innocent," she declared, her gaze sweeping across the faces of the council members. "My father's actions, whatever they may have been, are not my own. I have always been loyal to the Alpha King and to the pack." Her words were met with skepticism and hostility. Some council members scoffed, others exchanged knowing glances, and Councilman Theron simply smirked. Her pleas fell on deaf ears. Kalen remained silent, seated at the head of the table. His expression was unreadable, his eyes veiled with an impenetrable mask. Alara's anxiety grew as she looked at him. His silence was deafening, his lack of support a crushing blow. Was he complicit in this charade? Was he allowing her to be sacrificed for some unknown purpose? His quiet presence in the face of such accusation was more terrifying than any words could have been. A memory surfaced, a vivid snapshot from her childhood. She and her father were laughing, playing in the sun-drenched fields surrounding their home. He was teaching her how to track animals, sharing his knowledge of the forest, and instilling in her a deep respect for the balance of nature. He was a kind, gentle man, incapable of the treachery he was accused of. The warmth of that memory was a stark contrast to the cold reality of the present. This brought tears to her eyes, thinking of the good times she had. The pressure mounted, the atmosphere in the chamber becoming increasingly oppressive. More council members voiced their suspicions, their words echoing Theron's accusations. They spoke of her father's betrayal, of the threat he posed to the kingdom, and of the potential for Alara to follow in his footsteps. Each comment added to the feeling that they were all against her. She felt like prey surrounded by predators, her every move scrutinized, her every word twisted to fit their preconceived notions. She had walked into a trap, and there was no escape. They looked at her with hatred, and it was becoming too much. She was running out of hope, but she would not give up just yet. She must fight. She knew that her father would want her to fight for him. Councilman Theron presented a stack of documents, his eyes gleaming with malicious satisfaction. "Evidence," he declared, his voice booming through the chamber, "of Alara's father's treasonous activities." The documents appeared official, bearing the seal of the Alpha Council and containing detailed accounts of clandestine meetings, coded messages, and alleged payments to enemy packs. Whether the evidence was genuine or fabricated, it was impossible for Alara to tell. However, she knew in her heart that her father would never do such things. The words stabbed at her heart like a knife. Alara felt a wave of despair wash over her. The evidence, however flimsy, seemed insurmountable. The accusations, repeated over and over, had begun to take root in the minds of the council members. Her hope of proving her innocence dwindled with each passing moment, replaced by a chilling sense of inevitability. She was trapped in a nightmare, and there seemed to be no escape. She looked around the room, desperately looking for someone to save her, but everyone seemed to be looking down at her. Finally, Kalen spoke, his voice calm and measured, yet devoid of emotion. "The evidence presented is compelling," he stated, his gaze fixed on the documents in Theron's hands. "However, it is not conclusive. We must consider all sides before reaching a verdict." His words were ambiguous, neither condemning nor defending Alara. His non-committal stance only fueled the uncertainty and deepened Alara's anxiety. She couldn't tell if he was on her side or not. His neutrality felt more like a betrayal than a defense. A heated debate erupted among the Alpha Council members. Some, swayed by Theron's evidence and fueled by their own prejudices, argued for Alara's immediate imprisonment and a thorough investigation into her potential involvement in her father's alleged conspiracy. Others, more cautious and impartial, urged for a more measured approach, emphasizing the need for due process and a fair trial. The divisions within the council were stark, reflecting the deep-seated power struggles and conflicting loyalties that plagued the pack. It was a battlefield of words, each member fighting for their own agenda. Theron skillfully manipulated the debate, preying on the fears and insecurities of his fellow council members. He painted a vivid picture of Alara as a cunning and dangerous manipulator, capable of deceiving even the most discerning eyes. He reminded them of her father's betrayal, warning them not to make the same mistake again. His words were carefully chosen, designed to inflame passions and solidify his control over the narrative. He was the puppet master, pulling the strings of the council members like marionettes. Amidst the cacophony of accusations and counter-arguments, a voice rose in Alara's defense. Councilman Marius, his face etched with concern, spoke with a quiet authority that commanded attention. "We must not allow our emotions to cloud our judgment," he declared, his gaze fixed on Theron. "Alara is not her father. She deserves a fair hearing, and we must not condemn her based solely on circumstantial evidence." He then turned to address Alara, his eyes filled with compassion. "Tell us, Alara, what do you know of your father's actions? What can you tell us that might shed light on this matter?" Alara stared at Councilman Marius, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within her. He was a secret ally, a beacon of reason in the gathering storm. His words were a lifeline, offering her a chance to speak, to defend herself, to prove her innocence. She drew a deep breath, steeling her resolve. "I know nothing of my father's alleged crimes," she stated, her voice gaining strength. "I swear to you I have never conspired against the Alpha King or the Pack. I am innocent, and I am willing to do whatever it takes to prove it." She felt a surge of confidence, and for the first time in a long time she believed she might actually have a chance. The tide began to turn, ever so slightly, in Alara's favor. The debate shifted, becoming less accusatory and more inquisitive. Some council members, swayed by Marius's words and Alara's impassioned plea, started to question the validity of Theron's evidence. Doubts were sown, cracks appeared in the wall of prejudice, and a glimmer of hope emerged from the darkness. The fight was far from over, but for the first time Alara felt like she had a chance, and knew that there was still more to come. Kaelin's seemingly neutral stance was a carefully constructed facade, a strategic maneuver designed to achieve a specific outcome. He was playing a game of chess, and the council members were his pawns. While the others were openly displaying animosity or support, Kaelin seemed to be above it all, quietly observing the events as they unfolded. His intentions were a puzzle, and Alara found herself desperately trying to decipher his motives. Was he truly impartial, or was he subtly manipulating the situation to his own advantage? Alara began to scrutinize Kaelin, searching for subtle cues and expressions that might betray his true feelings. A slight tightening of his jaw, a fleeting flicker in his eyes, each micro-expression became a potential clue in her quest to understand him. She noticed the way he subtly directed the conversation, steering the debate toward certain topics and away from others. She sensed a hidden agenda, a purpose that lay beneath the surface of his calm demeanor. But what was it? What was he trying to achieve? She had no choice but to trust him, as he was her only hope. The pack bond, a mystical connection that bound all werewolves together, played a significant role in the council members' decisions. This bond fostered a sense of unity, loyalty, and shared responsibility. However, it could also be manipulated, exploited to sway opinions and enforce conformity. Theron, a master of pack dynamics, had skillfully used the bond to his advantage, stoking fears and prejudices to turn the council against Alara. She did not understand why everyone hated her so much. All she wanted was to be loved. Councilman Theron, sensing his control slipping, grew increasingly frustrated. The subtle shift in the council's mood, the growing doubts about his evidence, the unexpected support for Alara. All these factors threatened to derail his carefully orchestrated plan. His carefully constructed facade of composure began to crack, revealing the anger and desperation that simmered beneath the surface. He knew that he had to act quickly, to regain control before it was too late. He felt that if he could not gain control, then he would be nothing. In a desperate gamble, Theron issued a challenge, his voice laced with malice. If Alara truly believes in her innocence, he sneered, let her prove it in a trial by combat. Let her face a champion of my choosing, and let the gods decide her fate. His words were met with stunned silence. A trial by combat was a rare and archaic practice, reserved for only the most serious of accusations. It was a brutal and unforgiving ordeal, one that Alara, with her lack of combat experience, had little chance of surviving. The room was silent. All eyes turned to Kaelin, awaiting his response. The decision was his and his alone. The fate of Alara hung in the balance. Kaelin rose from his seat, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the council members. I accept, he declared, his voice ringing with authority. Alara will face your champion in a trial by combat. The words sent shockwaves through the chamber. Gasps of surprise, murmurs of disbelief, and a collective intake of breath filled the air. No one had expected Kaelin to agree, least of all Alara. Her heart pounded in her chest, fear gripping her like a vice. What had he done? Why had he condemned her to almost certain death? With Kaelin's acceptance, Alara was thrust into a whirlwind of forced training and brutal preparations. A grizzled old warrior, his face scarred and his eyes hardened by years of battle, was assigned to be her instructor. He was a reluctant mentor, convinced that Alara was doomed from the start. You're no warrior, girl, he growled, his voice rough as gravel. You're a lamb being led to slaughter. He was cold and hard, but he was the only one who could help her. Alara was starting to lose hope, but she knew that there was still something left inside of her. Alara endured a relentless training regime. Days blurred into a grueling cycle of sword practice, hand-to-hand combat drills, and agonizing endurance exercises. The old warrior pushed her to her limits, demanding more than she thought possible. She stumbled, she fell, she bled, but she refused to yield. The memories of the scorn she had received fueled her. She was more stubborn than anyone had given her credit for. Despite her fear, Alara possessed a surprising determination. The humiliation she had endured, the injustice she had suffered, had forged within her a resilience that even she didn't know she possessed. She was driven by a fierce desire to prove her innocence, to reclaim her honor, and to silence the voices of her tormentors. She refused to let them break her. She would show them all that she was not the traitor that they thought she was. As the days passed, Kaelin began to take a more active role in Alara's training. He observed her sessions with a keen eye, offering subtle corrections and insightful advice. He revealed a surprising depth of knowledge about combat techniques, sharing ancient strategies and forgotten skills that had been passed down through generations of Alpha Kings. His involvement was a mystery. Was he simply preparing her for the inevitable, or was he hoping that she would prevail? Their shared training sessions fostered a fragile bond between Alara and Kaelin. As they sparred and strategized, they began to see each other in a new light. Alara recognized the burden of leadership he carried, the weight of responsibility that rested upon his shoulders. Kaelin, in turn, witnessed her unwavering spirit, her refusal to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. A grudging respect began to blossom between them, slowly transforming into something akin to trust. However, their burgeoning connection was not without its challenges. Councilman Theron, determined to ensure Alara's demise, attempted to sabotage her training at every turn. He spread rumors about her incompetence, undermined her confidence, and even tampered with her equipment, hoping to injure her and weaken her resolve. Alara had to be vigilant, always watching her back, knowing that Theron would stop at nothing to see her fail. One evening, as Alara rested after a particularly grueling training session, Mara, the sympathetic servant, approached her with a grave expression. "Elara," she whispered, her eyes darting nervously around the room. "Be careful. There's more at stake here than just your life. There's a deeper conspiracy at play, one that involves powerful forces within the kingdom." She paused, her voice trembling. "I can't say more, but trust no one. And be wary of what appears to be true." Mara's words were a chilling reminder that the trial by combat was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. There were people working against her that she did not even know about, and they would do anything to see her destroyed. The eve of the trial arrived, casting a long shadow over Elara's preparations. The atmosphere was thick with tension, the air heavy with anticipation. She felt like she was standing on the precipice of a cliff, staring into the abyss. The weight of expectation pressed down on her, threatening to crush her spirit. She was alone, facing a battle that she was ill-prepared to fight, against an enemy who was determined to destroy her. She had no idea if she would survive, but she knew that she had to try. She had to fight for her father, for her honor, and for her life. The night was dark, but she would not let it consume her. She would rise and fight. She was the daughter of a warrior. The arena loomed before Elara, a colossal bowl carved into the heart of the capital. Its sandstone walls rose high into the sky, casting long shadows across the blood-soaked sand. The air thrummed with anticipation, a palpable energy that sent shivers down her spine. The scent of sweat, fear, and stale ale hung heavy in the air, a testament to the countless battles fought and lives lost within its confines. Banners bearing the sigils of the Alpha Council members flapped in the wind, their colors vibrant against the dull stone. The arena was packed with spectators, a sea of faces eager to witness the spectacle of the trial by combat. Nobles in their finest attire rubbed shoulders with commoners clad in rags, all united by a shared thirst for blood and entertainment. Their eyes were fixed on the center of the arena, where Elara stood, a lone figure facing an insurmountable challenge. A cacophony of jeers, cheers, and wagers filled the air, a constant reminder of the stakes at play. The noise was almost overwhelming, a deafening roar that threatened to drown out her thoughts. Councilman Theron's champion emerged from the shadows, a hulking brute of a man with muscles that strained against his leather armor. He was known as Gregor the Grim, a seasoned warrior with a reputation for brutality and a string of victories to his name. His face was a mask of cold indifference, his eyes devoid of any emotion. He carried a massive battle-axe, its blade gleaming ominously in the sunlight. He was a force of nature, an unstoppable juggernaut, and Elara felt a surge of terror wash over her as she faced him. He was everything that she was not, strong, skilled, and merciless. Elara's fear reached its peak. Her heart pounded in her chest, her breath came in ragged gasps, and her limbs trembled uncontrollably. She felt small and insignificant, a fragile lamb about to be devoured by a ravenous wolf. Doubt gnawed at her mind, whispering insidious suggestions of surrender. She knew that she was outmatched, outgunned, and out of her depth, but beneath the fear, a spark of defiance flickered. She would not give up without a fight. She would not let them break her. Kalen stood at the edge of the arena, his presence a source of both strength and mystery. His eyes were fixed on Elara, his expression unreadable. He offered no words of encouragement, no gestures of reassurance, but his mere presence was enough to steady her nerves. She trusted him, even though she did not know his true intentions. He was her anchor, her guiding light in the encroaching darkness. She did not know what he was thinking, but she knew that he was there for her. With a resounding clang of a bell, the trial began. Gregor the Grim charged towards Elara, his battle-axe raised high above his head. The crowd roared its approval, their bloodlust reaching a fever pitch. Elara braced herself, her sword trembling in her grip. This was it, the moment of truth. She would either survive or she would die. The outcome rested on her and her alone. She shut her eyes and prepared for what was about to come. Elara was tossed aside like a rag doll, the force of Gregor's initial attack sending her sprawling across the sand. The crowd roared with laughter, their jeers echoing through the arena. She struggled to her feet, her body aching, her mind reeling. She knew that she was outmatched, but she refused to surrender. She would fight, she would endure, and she would prove them all wrong. This was her chance to show everyone what she was made of. It was now or never. It was her time to shine. The combat was brutal, a dance of death between a seasoned warrior and an underdog fighting for her life. Alara, despite her lack of experience, moved with surprising agility, dodging Gregor's powerful blows with a nimbleness that belied her fear. She used her smaller size to her advantage, darting around him like a shadow, frustrating his attempts to land a decisive strike. Gregor, however, was relentless. He swung his battle-axe with bone-crushing force, each blow capable of cleaving her in two. The weapon whistled through the air, narrowly missing her head, her shoulder, her legs. Alara was forced to rely on her instincts, parrying his attacks with desperate blocks, her arms burning with the strain. She knew that she couldn't withstand his onslaught for long, but she refused to give him an easy victory. Councilman Theron watched the combat with a predatory gleam in his eyes. He couldn't resist interfering. He subtly signaled to Gregor, mouthing instructions, urging him to target Alara's injured leg. He was desperate to see her defeated, willing to stoop to any level to ensure her demise. He had to win this or everything that he had worked for would be for nothing. Kalen, however, was not blind to Theron's machinations. With a subtle gesture of his own, he signaled to the arena guards, subtly reminding them of their duty to ensure a fair fight. His actions were subtle, almost imperceptible, but they were enough to deter Theron from overtly interfering in the combat. He would not allow Theron to cheat. He wanted to see what Alara was truly capable of. Alara endured brutal attacks, each blow testing her limits of endurance. She was thrown to the ground, kicked and pummeled, but she refused to stay down. With each strike she remembered the faces of those who had scorned her, those who had judged her, those who had tried to break her. Their hatred fueled her, giving her the strength to rise again and again. She would not let them win. She would not let them see her defeated. A sudden, unexpected opportunity presented itself. Gregor, overconfident in his superiority, lunged forward, leaving himself momentarily exposed. Alara, sensing her chance, reacted instinctively. She ducked beneath his swing, her sword flashing upwards, striking him squarely in the chest. It was a lucky blow, a fluke, but it was enough to momentarily stun her opponent. Gregor staggered backwards, his eyes widening in surprise. A trickle of blood seeped through his armor, staining the metal a crimson red. He roared in anger, his grip tightening on his battle-axe, but the momentum had shifted. Alara had drawn first blood, and for the first time she felt a glimmer of hope. She knew that the fight was far from over, but she had proven that she was not as weak as everyone believed. The tide began to turn. Alara, emboldened by her success, pressed her advantage. She moved with renewed vigor, attacking Gregor with a flurry of strikes, her sword a blur of steel. She no longer fought with fear, but with a newfound confidence, a belief in her own abilities. She was still outmatched in terms of strength and experience, but she had discovered a hidden well of resilience within herself. She was no longer just the traitor's daughter. She was a warrior in her own right. The crowd was shocked. They could not believe what they were seeing. Alara was actually putting up a fight. The combat reached its fever pitch. Alara, battered and bruised, faced Gregor, who was equally exhausted and wounded. Both fighters stood as testaments to their willpower, mere moments from collapse. Each breath was a ragged gasp, each movement an agony. The arena fell silent, the spectators sensing the impending climax. Alara focused on her father's memory, the gentle strength he always showed. It fueled her final assault. She visualized his smile, the stories he shared, his faith in her. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about clearing his name, reclaiming his honor. The shame he went through should stop now. Summoning the last of her strength, Alara feinted left, then darted right, confusing Gregor. He lumbered after her, his movements sluggish and predictable. She saw an opening, a gap in his defenses, and she seized it without hesitation. With a desperate cry, Alara lunged forward, her sword aimed at Gregor's unprotected flank. The blade pierced his armor, sinking deep into his flesh. Gregor roared in pain, his eyes widening in disbelief. He stumbled, his massive body swaying precariously. Alara pressed her advantage, twisting the sword, deepening the wound. Gregor crashed to the ground, his battle-axe clattering harmlessly beside him. He was defeated. The crowd gasped. They couldn't believe it. The traitor's daughter had won. A stunned silence hung over the arena. Then, slowly, tentatively, applause began to ripple through the crowd. At first, it was a scattered smattering of claps, but it quickly grew into a thunderous ovation. The spectators, initially hostile and contemptuous, were now cheering her name. Alara, exhausted but triumphant, stood over her fallen opponent, her sword dripping with his blood. She had proven her innocence. She had defied the odds. She had won. Rage contorted Councilman Theron's face, the blood draining from his features. His carefully laid plans had been ruined, his authority undermined. He could not accept defeat. He could not allow Alara to escape unscathed. He was willing to risk everything to see her punished. Ignoring the rules of the trial, defying all sense of decorum, Theron leaped from his seat, drawing a hidden dagger. He charged towards Alara, his eyes burning with hatred. "Traitor's whelp!" he screamed, his voice filled with venom. "You will not escape. Justice!" Before anyone could react, Theron reached Alara, raising the dagger to strike. The crowd screamed. The situation was getting out of control and fast. It was over, or so it seemed. Kaelin moved with lightning speed. He leaped from his seat, intercepting Theron before he could reach Alara. With a swift, decisive move, he disarmed the councilman, sending the dagger skittering across the sand. "Enough!" Kaelin bellowed, his voice echoing through the arena. "This trial is over. Alara has proven her innocence." He grabbed Theron's arm, restraining him. Kaelin's gaze was icy as he looked at Theron. Then his tone shifted, becoming dangerous. "Your treachery ends here, Theron." This was the moment everyone had waited for. The Alpha King turned to address the stunned audience, his voice ringing with authority. "I have allowed this trial to proceed to expose the true traitor among us. Councilman Theron has conspired against this kingdom." Kaelin's intervention had changed everything. He had protected Alara, stopped Theron, and revealed his true intentions. The tide had turned, and the truth was about to be revealed. The audience was in shock. They didn't know what was going to happen next. It was the most exciting thing they had ever seen. "I knew of Theron's treachery all along," Kaelin announced, his voice resonating with regal authority. A collective gasp swept through the arena. All eyes turned to the disgraced councilman, his face a mask of disbelief and fury. "I used Alara's trial not to condemn her, but to expose him. I needed proof, undeniable evidence that the council and all of you could witness with your own eyes." He gestured towards a group of guards, who emerged from the shadows carrying chests filled with documents. These contain irrefutable proof that Theron framed Alara's father for crimes he did not commit. He conspired with rival pacts, manipulated evidence, and silenced anyone who dared to question his authority. The documents were presented to the Alpha Council, each member examining the evidence with growing horror. They confirmed Kaelin's accusations, revealing a web of deceit and corruption that stretched deep into the heart of the kingdom. Theron had been systematically undermining the Alpha King's authority for years, plotting to seize power for himself. Kaelin stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Theron. "Your scheme is exposed. Your reign of terror is over." With a booming voice, Kaelin then declared, "Alara's father, Liam, was innocent all along. His honor is restored, and his name is cleared." A collective murmur of relief and vindication swept through the crowd. Alara stood in stunned silence, tears streaming down her face. After all these years, her father's name was finally cleared. The weight of scorn and suspicion lifted from her shoulders, replaced by a sense of profound relief. Guards seized Theron, stripping him of his council robes and binding his hands. The crowd erupted in cheers, their anger turned against the fallen councilman. "Traitor!" they screamed, their voices filled with righteous fury. "Justice at last!" Kaelin watched as Theron was dragged away, his eyes filled with a mixture of satisfaction and regret. He had purged the corruption from his council, but at a great cost. He had used Alara as bait, putting her life at risk to achieve his goals. He only hoped that she could forgive him for what he had done. Turning to Alara, Kaelin addressed her with a newfound respect. "The Alpha Council owes you an apology, Alara. We allowed ourselves to be swayed by prejudice and lies. We failed to see the truth, and we wronged you and your family. One by one, the council members approached Alara, offering their sincere apologies. They acknowledged their mistake, admitting that they had been blinded by Theron's manipulations. They pledged to make amends, to ensure that such a miscarriage of justice never happened again. Even some members of the pack, once scornful and cruel, approached Alara with hesitant steps. They offered words of apology, expressions of remorse for their past behavior. They admitted that they had been wrong, that they had allowed themselves to be swayed by rumors and prejudice. They saw her now, not as the traitor's daughter, but as an individual, a strong and courageous woman who had endured unimaginable hardship and emerged triumphant. While not everyone voiced their approval, there was a newfound respect in the air. Alara was starting to be seen as an individual, and her bravery was inspiring the pack members to look at her with new eyes. The change would take time and old wounds would not heal instantly, but it was a start. The Alpha King approached Alara. With a soft expression he said, "I should have trusted you from the start." He paused and then said, "I'm sorry for what you have been through. I did it so I could get justice." He placed a hand on her shoulder with compassion. Alara looked at Kaelin, her heart filled with a mixture of gratitude and lingering resentment. He had cleared her father's name, but he had also put her through hell. Could she ever truly forgive him? Only time would tell. She could see in his eyes that he was truly sorry. For the first time in years, Alara felt a sense of hope. The future was uncertain, but she was no longer burdened by the weight of her father's alleged crimes. She was free to forge her own path, to create her own destiny. The path would not be easy, but she had overcome countless obstacles. She was ready for what the future had for her. The immediate aftermath of the trial was a whirlwind of emotions. Relief washed over Alara in waves so potent it almost buckled her knees. The vindication was complete. Her father's name cleared, the accusations against her proven false. The years of scorn, the isolation, the constant fear. It had all culminated in this moment. The weight lifted from her shoulders felt almost unbearable, an absence so profound it was disorienting. She looked around at the cheering crowd, at the council members offering their apologies, and for the first time in what seemed like a lifetime, she felt a sense of belonging. Kaelin approached her, his expression a complex mix of relief, regret, and something else she couldn't quite decipher. "Alara," he began, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "I need to explain." He led her away from the throng to a quieter corner of the arena, where they could speak privately. He began to explain his motivations, his actions, revealing the intricate web of deception he had woven to expose Theron's treachery. He told her how he had suspected Theron for years, but lacked the concrete evidence to bring him down. He had used Alara's trial as a catalyst, a carefully orchestrated trap to force Theron to reveal his true colors. "I knew it was a risk," Kaelin admitted, his eyes filled with remorse. "Putting you in danger like that. It was not an easy decision, but it was the only way to be certain. I couldn't risk the stability of the kingdom on a hunch." He confessed that he always believed in her innocence. He saw something in her eyes, a spark of truth and unwavering loyalty that resonated with him. He also saw the courage and conviction in her fighting. He knew that no matter the circumstances, she would never surrender. As Kaelin spoke, Alara began to understand the weight of his responsibilities, the difficult choices he had to make as Alpha King. She saw the burden he carried, the constant pressure to protect his pack, even if it meant making sacrifices. But there was something more in his voice, something that resonated deep within her. It was an undeniable fondness that made her feel something foreign and new. It was in the soft gaze of his eyes and the gentle tone of his voice. He paused, taking a deep breath. "Alara," he continued, his voice barely a whisper. "During the trial I saw who you truly are. Your resilience, strength, and compassion. I began to develop feelings I did not know I could." Alara's heart pounded in her chest. His words were unexpected, unsettling, yet undeniably thrilling. She had spent so long resenting him, blaming him for her suffering, that she hadn't allowed herself to see him as anything other than the Alpha King, the man who had condemned her. To hear that he harbored feelings for her, that he admired her, was a shock to her system. She struggled to reconcile these new revelations with her past resentment. Could she forgive him for putting her life at risk? Could she trust him with her heart? Could she really see herself falling for the man who had allowed her to be ridiculed and ostracized? She was torn between the pain of the past and the promise of a new future. A new future began to materialize in her mind, free from the shadow of her father's past. She could start over, forge her own destiny. She was no longer just the traitor's daughter. She was Alara, a woman who had overcome incredible adversity, a warrior who had proven her strength. Kaelin broke the silence. "We will return to the capital," he said. "But things will be different now. We will work together as allies to rebuild our kingdom and ensure that justice prevails." He extended his hand, his eyes filled with sincerity. Alara hesitated for a moment, then reached out and took it. Their fingers intertwined, a silent promise of a new beginning. The road ahead would not be easy, but they would face it together side by side. The journey home was just beginning, but a new chapter was starting as well. The journey back to the capital was a stark contrast to their previous trek. The weight of suspicion and animosity had lifted, replaced by an air of hopeful anticipation. The landscape seemed brighter, the sky bluer, as if the kingdom itself was celebrating Alara's vindication. No longer did they travel in guarded silence, but with a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. Kaelin and Alara's bond continued to strengthen with each passing day. They spent hours discussing their visions for the future of the kingdom, debating policy changes, and sharing their hopes and fears. Alara discovered a keen intelligence and a deep compassion beneath Kaelin's stoic exterior. While Kaelin was constantly impressed by Alara's wisdom, her unwavering commitment to justice, and her innate ability to connect with the common people. Their conversations were open and honest, free from the constraints of their former roles. They were now equals, partners in a shared endeavor. As they journeyed, Alara noticed a significant shift in the way she was treated. No longer did people whisper behind her back or cast scornful glances her way. Instead, they greeted her with smiles, offered her gifts, and expressed their gratitude for her courage and her unwavering spirit. The change was palpable, a testament to the power of truth and the transformative effect of justice. The general public began to respect her, and it showed. The pact members even started bringing her presents. Kaelin, true to his word, began to implement reforms to promote fairness and equality within the pack. He dismantled Theron's corrupt network, appointed new council members based on merit rather than loyalty, and established a system of checks and balances to prevent future abuses of power. He listened to the concerns of the common people, addressing their grievances and working to improve their lives. The kingdom was undergoing a transformation, shedding its old skin and embracing a new era of justice and compassion. Alara's influence on Kaelin grew with each passing day. He valued her insights, sought her counsel, and trusted her judgment. She challenged his assumptions, questioned his decisions, and pushed him to be a better leader. She was his conscience, his moral compass, his guiding star. With Alara by his side, Kaelin felt more confident and more capable than ever before. She inspired him to become a better king, and for that, he would always be grateful. One evening, as they sat by a campfire beneath a canopy of stars, Kaelin turned to Alara, his eyes filled with a deep affection. "Alara," he said, his voice soft and sincere, "I promise you from this day forward, I will dedicate my life to building a kingdom worthy of your courage, your compassion, and your unwavering spirit. I will always value your counsel, respect your opinions, and cherish your presence in my life." He reached out and took her hand, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. "And I promise you," he added, his gaze locking with hers, "that I will never allow anyone to harm you, to disrespect you, or to question your worth. You are my equal, my partner, and my most trusted ally." He made this promise with such conviction that she knew he was going to keep it. The future of the werewolf kingdom looked brighter than ever before. With Alara and Kaelin working together, hand in hand, the pack could finally heal from its wounds. They were ready to create a better world. A world where justice prevailed, where compassion reigned, and where everyone had the opportunity to thrive. The journey ahead would not be easy, but they were determined to face it together. The werewolf kingdom was on the path to its best years yet. Alara embraced her newfound role and responsibility, throwing herself into the task of rebuilding the kingdom. She visited villages, listened to the concerns of the commoners, and championed reforms that would improve their lives. She was a beacon of hope for the downtrodden, a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of justice and equality. As time passed, it became clear that Kaylin and Alara's relationship had evolved into something deeper than friendship or partnership. Their bond had grown, strengthened by shared experiences, mutual respect, and an undeniable attraction. Their glances lingered a moment too long, their touches became more frequent, and their conversations were filled with an unspoken longing. The whispers started again. But these whispers were kind, full of support and well-wishing. One starlit night, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the capital city, Kaylin turned to Alara, his eyes filled with love. "Alara," he said, his voice soft and tender. "I can no longer deny what is in my heart. I love you. I love your strength, your compassion, your unwavering spirit. You are my soulmate, my partner, my everything." Alara's heart soared. She had secretly harbored feelings for Kaylin, but she had been afraid to admit them, even to herself. She had been so focused on clearing her father's name and rebuilding the kingdom that she had suppressed her own desires. But now, standing in his arms with his love shining down on her, she could no longer deny the truth. "I love you too, Kaylin," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "More than words can say." Kaylin drew her close, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss. It was a kiss that sealed their fate, a promise of eternal love and unwavering devotion. In the end, Alara found peace and happiness, finally escaping the shadow of her past. She had not only cleared her father's name and helped to rebuild a kingdom, but she had also found true love. Her journey had been fraught with hardship and heartbreak, but it had ultimately led her to a place of profound fulfillment. Her story was a testament to the importance of forgiveness, resilience, and the transformative power of true love. It showed how important it was to never give up. In the final scene, Alara and Kaylin stood side by side on a hill overlooking the werewolf kingdom, the sun shining down upon them. They were no longer just the traitor's daughter and the Alpha King. They were partners, lovers, and leaders. They had faced adversity, overcome prejudice, and built a better world together. Their future was bright, filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. They looked out upon their kingdom with pride. Their story serves as a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, love and justice can prevail. Alara and Kaylin were happy, and they would continue to rule together. The people would have a bright future. It was the perfect end to a true love story. The people cheered as they waved. Thank you for watching Alara and Kaylin's story. Be sure to subscribe for more videos. We can't wait to bring you the next thrilling love story. Subscribe and like the video if you like this love story. Don't forget to tell us your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you.